Shortly after touchdown, the plane filled with the warm Pacific air. The passengers began taking off heavier clothes in favor of beach attire. He stepped off the plane and let the sun penetrate his exposed skin. After passing through customs, he grabbed a taxi and was on his way. Through the dry and sunburned terrain, the taxi passed rocky cliffs and palm trees. The taxi clinged to the steep streets of Zihuatanejo and pulled up to the resort on the beach. A complimentary drink was presented to him at check-in. He settled into his room by the pool and then made his way to the beach. After a few days, some good sleeps, and fresh food, he was beginning to feel rested. He had decided to try staying off his phone as much as possible, but as he lay on his poolside couch, scrolling his phone, he checked his dating apps. It would be nice to meet a Mexican woman, he thought. Being a tourist in a foreign country, he had gained some traction on the apps, unlike back home. The next day, he messaged a match. She was close to his age. She was pretty and funny. She sent goofy messages. Based on her profile, he thought that she might have been looking for a hookup, which he kind of was. He asked if she'd want to come to his place. She said she might, but she knew people that worked there, and she likely wouldn't be allowed into the resort. A lot of people knew her and her family around town. They decided to meet on the public beach near the resort. She let him know when she was on her way, and that she was high. He waited on a beach chair for her. He was a bit nervous. She said she was walking along the beach towards him. As he watched for someone that looked like the person he'd seen online, he eventually spotted her, but she kept walking as if she had no intentions of stopping. She was wearing sunglasses, a hat, listening to music, and looking at her phone. He grabbed his towels, water bottles, and sunscreen, and walked down to her. "Hey, Mila," he said as he walked up to her. "Yeah, hey," she said, laid back. They bumped fists. "Where should we sit?" he said, as they scanned the beach for a good spot. It was hot and sunny, and they decided on a spot under some palm trees with shade. They talked, and she smoked weed. She offered him some, but he hadn't smoked in a long time. He hadn't been reacting well to weed lately, and he didn't want to risk it today. She liked movies, odd movies. He did too. She loved The Office. Her family owned businesses in the area, and she knew a lot of people, business owners, from around the city. She loved to travel, and had lived in Cabo, Tulum, and Cancun. She had friends all around the world. She was simple, liked to meditate, didn't like to dress up or wear makeup. She was cool. He liked these things about her. He felt comfortable around her, like she wasn't judging him. They decided to cool off and go for a swim. When she revealed her bikini, taking off her hat and glasses, he saw how beautiful she was. He first saw her eyes when he was in the water, looking back at her. She had dark eyes, freckles, a cute smile, and golden skin. She was so graceful in the water, the way she would dive under. He had an urge to touch her body, and he thought about the right moment to do it. They swam for a while, enjoying the warm Pacific water. After the swim, she took him to a beachside restaurant that had crocodiles and iguanas. They talked more about movies and life. They showed each other cool movie trailers on their phones. She liked psychological movies. She had struggled with mental health. He had too. They headed out after a few beers and talked about what they would do next. He wanted to get closer to her. She said she was heading downtown and asked if he wanted to come. He had been planning to go downtown tomorrow, but he could go today. She said she would wait for him at the bar while he showered, but he asked her if she wanted to come to his place to shower as well, before going downtown. She wasn't certain, and she wasn't sure she would be allowed on the resort. He said it would be no problem. His room was close to the beach. As they walked towards the resort, nothing had been decided and she wasn't committed. But as they approached the resort, he said it would be fine, and they walked to his room. She stepped into the outdoor shower in her beautiful bikini. He joined her and asked if he could touch her. She said sure. He was behind her and started grabbing her body. He rubbed shampoo into her hair. She turned and they kissed. An upside-down V tattoo framed the inside of her breasts. He looked into her beautiful eyes and told her how beautiful she was. She said she knew. She was even more beautiful than before. They touched and kissed and grabbed and pleasured each other intimately. It was perfect to him. Afterwards, they dried off and changed, and stepped into his AC-chilled room. He made them coffees. He was caught up in himself now. He felt exposed. They had just met and didn't have a strong connection. He didn't know how to act. They left the resort and walked about 20 minutes to downtown, talking and laughing along the way. She showed him to the shopping section of town, where he shopped for souvenirs to bring back for his family. She helped him decide on some nice things. Afterwards, they grabbed beers from a convenience store and watched basketball along the boardwalk. Later, she called a taxi home, and he kissed her goodnight. He walked home, thinking about the day he had, and if he would see her again. As he lay in bed, he thought about the amazing experience he had in the shower, the connection they had, physically, and how natural it seemed. The next day he had breakfast at the resort. He met a girl that Mila said she knew who worked at the resort, who was serving him. He told her that Mila said hi, and the server was amazed that he knew her. Mila had said the worker had a girlfriend that sang, and he asked about her. She said she would be performing at the resort restaurant tonight at 7 p.m. He said he would be there. He wasn't sure when he'd hear from Mila again. They had moved pretty fast, and he wanted to give it time. He wasn't sure if they had a real connection. They had said they would go to a bar called Señor Frog's on Friday, and he didn't know if he would see her again until then. He hadn't heard from her all day. He was laying on the poolside couch when he got some messages from Mila. She was at a family party, drinking, and smoking weed. She sent pictures of herself, and she looked pretty. She was hungry, and was thinking of going for dinner at an Italian restaurant with her family after the party. She loved Italian food. She asked if he would want to join, but that her family was crazy. He said he would, but that he wanted to see Dana play at the resort first. Could she wait until after? How long would Dana play for? Mila told him to listen to Dana, and they would meet after. He sat at a table at the beachside restaurant and had a Corona as Dana started her set. She sang beautifully on the stringlit beach for a small, intimate audience of only a few tables of resorters. The waves were washing onto the beach, and the lights of the city on the other side of the bay were shining like stars. Other people came up from the public beach to listen as she sang softly with her acoustic guitar. She sang Coldplay and Ed Sheeran, songs of love, and he thought of Mila. After the set, Dana called to him. Her girlfriend had told her that Mila knew a guy at the resort, a tall guy, and he was easy to spot. Dana told him to tell Mila that there was a ladies' night at a rock bar downtown, and that he was welcome to come. He messaged Mila and asked if they were still going to eat Italian food with her family. She said it was now closed, but that he should come to the rock bar if he wanted. It was late, but he said he'd meet her there when she was ready. He took a taxi to the bar. Mila was running late. He grabbed some hot dogs from a street vendor. She was just on her way now. The bar was packed with ladies. He waited on a bench outside as the ladies sang their hearts out. He grabbed a Corona alongside the men wearing cowboy hats outside, as if they were waiting for the ladies' night to be over so they could court them. Dana was mingling around the bar and talking with everyone. He said hi to her. She said she would have a secret performance later tonight. Mila finally arrived with a friend. On their first date, she said she only liked to drink a couple of beers and a shot of tequila, but she was now plastered. They went to grab a table inside of the cramped, warm bar. The music was loud. All of the ladies were singing Mexican songs of love passionately. They grabbed drinks throughout the night, and Mila would explain to him the meanings of all of the songs. Not a single one was in English. He only understood about half of what she was saying, but she was sweet and had such great energy, trying to include him. Her friend eventually had to leave, and it was just him and Mila. They sat, Dana performed, they grabbed more drinks, and slowly inched closer through the night. She began to snuggle alongside him, grabbing his legs. He wanted to be close with her like the day before. He touched her as well. It was nearing 3 a.m., and he was wondering when the music would end. He asked if they should go, and she agreed. They hung out outside the bar for some time, chatting with her friends. He met Miguel, her mystic friend that did tarot cards. They left and walked the quiet streets. She said she was meeting a friend to get drugs. She was very drunk, and he could hardly make out her plans. But she grabbed his hand and guided him. They went to the convenience store, and she grabbed some coffees to try to sober up. They sat by the basketball court, which at this hour was almost completely deserted. He debated kissing her, but she was too drunk. He asked what her plan was, and she said she didn't know. He said he was going back to the resort. Did she want to come? She was undecided. She said. He wanted to go, but she didn't have a plan. She decided to come with him, and in the taxi, she joked about the gringo taking her to his resort. He said if she didn't want to come, she didn't need to come. She said she was joking. When they arrived at the resort, the front doors were closed. They'd have to walk around the resort and enter from the public beach side. He tried being funny and made a stupid joke about her being a prostitute. He was drunk as well. A security guard confronted them as they approached the backside of the resort. She grabbed his hand as they walked, and he told the guard he was staying in suite number 3. The guard let them go. In the room, they continued sipping their coffees. She was very drunk and was eating some food she had gotten from the convenience store. He sat next to her on the bed, and then they began to kiss. Things escalated. Their clothes came off, and as things got more intimate, he said he didn't have a condom. He thought about whether the front desk would have any, but it was late. He was drunk, and they were both caught up in the moment. He didn't want to get her pregnant. He asked if she was on birth control. She said no, but that it was fine. She couldn't get pregnant now. They were both drunk, and it happened. He had pulled out, but the fear of what had happened rushed over him immediately after and sobered him up. Why had he been embarrassed to go find a condom, or why did he have to have sex at all? He asked her if she would get pregnant. She said that she followed her ovulation cycles and was about to have her period, so no. She showed him her ovulation calendar. He continued asking the same question. He had made a mistake, and he was panicking. He asked that if anything happened, would she keep the baby? No, 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 she said. But then she said she would keep a baby, and that he wouldn't need to be a part of it. She said he could see the baby whenever he wanted. She joked that maybe she would never tell him until later in life. Feelings engulfed him. She laughed at him for being so naive, for being 32 and scared of such a thing. She revealed that she didn't even know he was a single man. He was scared by her behavior now, of how she was treating the situation. He began searching on his phone the chances of getting pregnant without a condom, the chances of getting pregnant from pulling out, how ovulation cycles worked. She fell asleep on him, snoring, as he repeatedly looked up the same things which all told him there was always a chance of pregnancy. He had to trust what she had said and the calendar she showed him. How many days in a month could a woman get pregnant? 6? 7? Fine. That's not many. What are the odds that this was one of those days? How would he tell his family and friends, those who knew him to have never had anyone serious, and now this? He would be so embarrassed. He still had so many things that he had to fix and improve before he was ready. The thought of having a child in his life was crushing him. He was so stupid and irresponsible. Why did he let the night come to this? With a drunk woman from another country, all for a short amount of satisfaction. The odds were possibly slim that she would get pregnant, and he may have been overreacting, but this was real life. Life that he could be bringing into the world, and the reality was hitting him hard. He woke up to move to the other side of the bed. She woke up later to go to the washroom, but never came back. He wondered if she had left. The thought of her leaving and him never hearing from her again terrified him. He went to check where she was, and she was asleep on the toilet. He didn't know what to do. He was overwhelmed by the situation. He should have helped her, but he didn't. He wanted to try to get some sleep, so he went back to bed. She returned to bed shortly after. In the morning, they cuddled. Her phone was repeatedly ringing, and he woke her up to answer it to make sure no one was looking for her. Her friend was having panic attacks and was at the hospital. He brought up the topic of pregnancy again. No, 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 she said again repeatedly. What did she mean by that? Did she mean no, she wouldn't keep it? Or no, she wasn't pregnant, so don't talk about it. But she said that she would not kill a baby. He said that he thought it was a good idea for them to go to a pharmacy and get the morning after pill, just in case. Nothing is certain, he said, and he was relieved when she agreed. They took a taxi to the hospital where they would be able to go to the pharmacy. She took the pill and showed it to him like a child as she put it onto her tongue and swallowed it. They went to a restaurant next door to have some breakfast. The restaurant served fresh quesadillas and freshly squeezed juice. He had the chicharrones and green chilies. She had the cheese. He was hungover and tired, a bit zoned out, but he felt a bit better now, almost enjoying himself for a moment. He spoke with the delivery man that worked at the restaurant, who had lived in Bakersfield, California. He said the lifestyle was too different for him in California. He said the money was good, but there was nothing to do for him there but drugs, so he came back to Mexico. They split up after lunch. Mila called her friend that drove a taxi to take him to Ixtapa, where he would be staying at a different resort for the rest of his trip. He hugged her as the taxi arrived, and Mila went to see her friend in the hospital. He didn't say much to her taxi-driving friend, who didn't speak English. He stared at the scenery, zoned out, thinking of how he had botched his whole trip. What it would have been like to be going to Ixtapa without this situation in the air. He tried to check in at the resort, but they were having issues with his reservation. They told him to wait in the lobby as they sorted it out. He sat in the warm, open-air lobby as he continued to Google the ins and outs of accidental pregnancy. Did Plan B always work? How long after sex do you need to take Plan B? Is one Plan B pill enough? He decided to go for a walk along the beach. He was taking it in, but not fully. When he returned, he finally got his room. He took in the view from the balcony, turned on the TV, and managed to finally fall asleep from exhaustion. It was 6 p.m. when he woke up. He went down to the all-inclusive buffet. He ate and drank horchata. He went back to his room and turned on the TV. The TV was taking his mind off of things a bit, but he could not help thinking about what people would think of him back home, the ways they would point out his faults and how he would validate their beliefs if he got her pregnant, the way his life would need to change. He felt stripped down, naked, and almost more human than ever before. He had never thought about suicide seriously, but the idea gently crossed his mind. As he lay thinking, he also prayed. He wasn't religious, but he prayed for whatever was possible. He didn't want or need anything else, ever, only for this one wish to be answered. He promised that he wouldn't ask for anything in life again, and that he would live in complete freedom. He had faith in who he was, and that he had no ill intention in him. He was a good person that had work to do on himself, and this could ruin him. Could one mistake bury him? Should he not be given a second chance? He had lived his life well, honestly. If there was a higher power out there, he believed it could see that. Perhaps the universe did not care about these things, and his instinctive action would be answered with instinctive responsibilities. He envisioned a world in which he was a father, and how he could either be crushed or accept it and live with it. It happened. It is what it is. This is life. He tossed and turned through the night, thinking of both sides of things. Which direction would the universe choose for him? The next day, he had breakfast at the buffet, and went to spend the day at Ixtapa Island. It was an extra hot day. The island was beautiful, calm waters, quiet beaches, with small restaurants. He wasn't hungry, and didn't feel like doing anything. He was mentally drained. He walked around, without a plan, just trying to clear his mind and enjoy the time. But he couldn't get out of his mind. He lounged on a beach chair at one of the restaurants, had some iced drinks, and tried to rest. He thought of how his trip could have been so different, how a normal person would have just taken it easy and relaxed for their trip. But he had to go ahead and fuck it up for himself. Did this represent his entire life? He thought. He took the boat back to the resort and had dinner at the buffet again. This night it was a Mexican-themed night. He went back to his room, turned on the TV, and messaged Mila. They had talked about going to Senor Frog's tonight, and he wanted one last chance to talk with her before he left the next day. He wanted to get on the same page about what had happened and confirm what she would do if a pregnancy happened. They met at a restaurant owned by a friend of hers. She brought some of her family's coconut mezcal for him to take home, but it was almost all gone as she had drunk it with her tattoo artist as she was getting tattooed earlier that day. They drank the mezcal, and she didn't seem concerned about what had happened. He had expected this. He wanted the same ease and relaxation that she had. She told him she had felt sick at the hospital yesterday and had thrown up. He had read about how you may need to take another Plan B pill if you throw up within a certain amount of time. She laughed at him and said it was hours after she had taken it. She had researched it too. He had resigned to accepting whatever would happen at this point. He had tried everything he could and felt lucky to even have her take the pill in the first place. They finished the bottle of mezcal and went to Senor Frog's. The bar was dead. Mila's main priority was getting drunk. She explained that she only smoked and drank during December, the holiday month. He hoped that this was the case. She had a friend, an old roommate that worked at the bar. She danced closely with him. She got a lap dance from him. He felt foolish, but he didn't want to judge. She was just having fun. But what if this really was the person he had made a mistake with? He thought about what life would be like trying to share parenthood with her. Which Mila did he know, if any at all? He danced with her to try and be in the moment. The workers laughed at his attempt at salsa. She said, like this, and showed him how to step. She said, like this, and showed him how to grab her hip, how to push her away and pull her back, and how to spin her. After a few songs, he got the hang of it. They pushed and pulled and span, and he felt like he wasn't fully embarrassing himself anymore. After dancing, Mila climbed onto his lap and started kissing him. This was a good sign to him that he had not been forgotten by her tonight. They left the bar. He had to go back to the resort. She tried entering with him, but was rejected by a security guard. They ended up on a street-side bench, kissing. She said that she wanted to be with him one more night, that she could not remember the last one, and that he should change his flight. They went down to the beach where they would have some more privacy. She asked if he would join him in the sand. He said he didn't feel like it. He thought about the mistake he had made, and he just wanted to move on from this. He didn't want to do it again. He knew she wouldn't want to talk about it, but he wanted to talk about pregnancy. He asked what she would do if she was pregnant, and she said she wasn't pregnant. She knew. He said that was not his question, but what would she do if she was pregnant? She started to get frustrated. She said she was not ready for kids, but she would have a baby. He said that he wasn't ready for kids as well. He had problems, and he just wanted her to consider his side as well. That he had learned his lesson and wanted a second chance. She said she had learned a lesson as well, that she should not have been so drunk, that she would never use Tinder again. That she was reminded of how all men are the same, all stupid. He said that he never wanted to hurt anyone. She said he should go to therapy. He agreed. She said she never, ever had unprotected sex. He started to sense that her frustration may be coming from regret of her own mistake as well. But this was the situation, and he just wanted a clear answer on what to expect. She said she wasn't pregnant. He said he understood that, but what if she was? He said that an abortion pill was just another pill. He brought up how she had said that she wasn't ready for a kid, but she said she wasn't going to take another pill. He felt like he was talking to a wall now. She said she would keep it, and he said okay. That was her decision, and he had to accept it. He asked again if she was certain she wasn't pregnant, and she started to storm off. She said she was going to the convenience store. She was pissed at him now, breathing aggressively. She was going to get a pregnancy test to prove she wasn't. He said he was pretty sure they wouldn't have any tests there. She quickly crossed the street dangerously in front of traffic without any consideration. She arrived at the store and asked, but they did not have any tests. She started calling for a ride home, but it was late, past 3 a.m., and no one was answering her. Her taxi driver, her friend from the bar, her uncle, no one answered. She was very sad and upset, and she sat on the grass by the road. He rubbed her legs and held her hand to try to make her feel better. He said that no matter what happened, just to let him know, keep him updated. He didn't want to be left in the dark. She had no money to pay for a taxi. He said he could give her money to take a taxi home. She said she didn't want a man to pay for her. He said that wasn't the point. She needed somewhere to sleep. He said that isn't how he'd want to treat someone that could be pregnant with his child. She got mad again. She wasn't pregnant. She said she would sleep on the beach and started heading for it. You need to protect yourself, she was now yelling. If you don't want a kid with a Mexican girl, don't bring her home with you. He knew he wasn't going to stop her from going her own way now. He asked if he could give her a hug, and they did, and he kissed her on the lips. No matter what happens, Mila, I support you, and I'll be there for you, he said. She began to walk for the beach. You men are all the same, she said with a look of disgust. No, he said. It was all he could muster. He knew he couldn't say anything to change her mind, but he wanted to say something, and this was all that came out. It felt true to him. He struggled to sleep again, now more so about the fact that there was a woman sleeping on the beach that he was partially responsible for. He wanted to go down to do something, but he knew there was nothing he could do. He had to move on with the night. He felt bad about a lot of things, but among them, that he might have torn this woman's trust of dating, of men. He felt responsible for so much all of a sudden. He again tried to envision a world in which he wasn't a father. The TV made him feel better, but he barely slept. The next morning, his phone was dead, and it wouldn't charge from the damage that was done to it by the salt water while he was at the beach. He plugged it in and waited. He looked outside, and it had rained last night. He was terrified. What had happened to her? Was she okay? How could this have actually happened? The phone eventually turned on to messages from Mila. The texts read, Blood. Told you. You don't have more problems. I'm Mila. I'm going to gift this phone to the security guard, 'cause his child have cancer. I just want to make sure you saw the blood. I know my body like I told you.